I'm Tom.
And we're Velocities in Music, VIMTV, today to end our set of 10 album reviews in one day, because we're crazy about music. We are going to review a request by Rocco, who won the one of the ways that we do requests, which is our album riddle game, which Tom and I are huge music nerds. Tom loves riddles and always has got me into it we've been friends for way too long.
Yeah, I know.
We're no longer friends. It's been too long. But we like album riddles where you turn the titles of a record and then you do some sort of like little riddle and it can even be in like an anagram or something like that into a riddle, and then we put those up on our Twitter, our Facebook, and we have people go out, see what they are, and then figure it out, give us the answer, and the first person to get the answers right wins, and they get to request blatantly whatever album they want us to review. The only caveat is we can't have reviewed it before. And as long as that's it, then we'll review anything. And so Rocco won. He requested Yola Tango's I Can Hear the Heart Beating, right?
I can hear as one.
As one.
Yeah.
Right, I forgot the last part. And it's because that it cut off on my iPod.
Okay.
Which is understandable, right? So, we've both been really excited to review this because Yola Tango is a band that we've both wanted to check out before because we haven't had previous exposure to Yola Tango. And as Tom pointed out to me before, and I think it's such a great way to introduce what this album is and what it did for music, because this has gone down in history as like one of the greatest albums of all time, right? I mean,
of the 90s.
Of the 90s at least, and it came out in the same year that Radiohead's OK Computer came out, which changed music too. So this
We're
is one
self-titled.
Yeah, exactly. This is one of those pivotal albums, and Tom worded it as this is the fulcrum between like the post-punk kind of underground indie scene going on in the early 90s into today's music scene. This is the bridge between the two, and I can totally see why, because the way I thought of it was kind of a smorgasbord of indie music, of a collection of all the indie music you've heard the last 20 years. You're gonna find a piece of it on this record, and it's all here for you to listen to with a 1997 spin on it, and that's something that I really appreciate. Now, Tom ended up liking this album a lot more than I did. Not to say that I didn't like it, because I'm definitely putting it in that good range. I'll tell you that's in the 70s. Tom just liked it a little bit more, so I'll let him kind of dissect it a bit.
Okay. Well, the thing that really did it for me was just the variety. Right. I mean, it's just blatant right away. You get all these.
Yeah, if you like variety, this is a good album.
You get anything from like noisy Jesus and Mary Chain type guitar styles with even similar vocal styles. I mean, that really kind of laid back, kind of droney sound. You get anything from that to like pretty much Neil Young ballad.
Right. Yeah.
Like straight up. And really, what it made me think of in more modern terms, well, I mean, this is still actually a pretty old album, but we reviewed Fountains of Wayne's Welcome Interstate Managers.
Right.
And,
a little different style.
Well, oh, yeah, the styles are different, but what they were going for in the album with the jumping between different styles is similar. And I really liked it, and here's why. I don't like the individual styles even that they picked out to do, but because they do all the variety of them and mix it up. Like, I wouldn't like an entire album of songs like Sugar Cube or
Autumn Sweater.
Yeah, exactly. But in context of this, where it's jumping back and forth while still being able to flow within the moods and the styles, then it really worked for me because I liked them as individual tracks and it never got old. Now, at the same time, I think my biggest complaint is that this album's a little lengthy.
16 tracks, it's a long album.
It's like, 60-some minutes long. Now, you got to understand, I know that being this came out in 1997, there's going to be a lot of people out there that are very emotionally attached to this. I'm guilty of that with a lot of albums. We reviewed 311's Transistor earlier today, and I gave it a perfect 100 just because it means so much to me.
Right.
And even though that album is 70-some minutes long, I wouldn't change a thing. I know that a lot of you out there will feel the same way as about this album.
And that's great. You should love it.
And you should. Don't take what I'm saying as stopping you from loving it. Just understand that those same reasons are things that turn me off a little bit. Especially when you get to like the song Spec Bebop, which is like 10.5 minutes long. Like, to me, unjustified.
Right. It could have been 3 minutes and accomplished the same thing. 2 minutes.
Exactly. And I know there's going to be you peers out there who are like, no! Even if this was only 9.5 minutes, this album would not be the same. And my point is, that's fine, but I don't feel that way having only listened to this for 2 weeks.
We're glad that you like it. You know, this is just where we're at.
But I think that there were a few tracks that were a little weaker, that didn't stand up to the quality of some of the others. Another thing I want to...
You're not going to like everything on a buffet.
No. That's a very good point. That's what this is. It's the buffet of music. And I'm sure that those tracks that people don't like are going to be different for everyone, which is probably why this album works.
Right.
But at the same time too, one thing I want to comment on is the vocal style. You know, songs like Sugar Cube and even Damage a little bit, I think it works a little better for Damage, but it's that very laid back kind of drony sound that I know a lot of people like. I don't really. To me, it sounds a little lazy and just kind of like they don't really care, and then it doesn't make me care. So some spots like that were a little iffy for me, but as I said, it wasn't present enough throughout the album to stop me from really liking it.
Right. One of the major aspects about this sound on this album that I really loved that Yo La Tengo did, which I think that there's only a few bands out at the time that were really focused on this, because it was all about hooks at this point in time. To me, if I think back to the music that I was into back then, but this album has a very coherent focus on atmosphere, about using guitars and other instruments to provide a backdrop of and a soundscape. That's something that Radiohead, OK Computer, got a lot of credit for, and I feel like Yo La Tengo should also inherit that same credit, because it's cool and it's a cool style. It's cool that they're able to do that so well, especially like Tom's favorite track, Green Arrow, which is exactly that. And it just really reminded me a lot of Radiohead's recent work, you know, like on In Rainbows, you know, follows suit. And I think that that's kind of one of my favorite things about this, is just getting to think about it. Yeah, this album came out, and then all these other bands followed suit. You know, I think of like No Age, Yuck, Bell and Sebastian, even Radiohead. Broken Social Scene. Yeah, there's tons of albums out there in the indie world right now that you could say got a lot of influence from this, so it's kind of cool and nostalgic to go back and listen to it. Another thing is just how charming and that X factor of how applicable these songs just make you feel good. They're catchy, they're fun to listen to, and you can listen to it's easily listening. But what does bother me, Tom mentioned the length, lack of consistency, maybe even production, but you know, contextually that doesn't bother me too much. I found that it was just a lot to take in. The length got to me, and I just didn't attach to it quite as much as Tom did. I'm going 77 on this one.
I'm gonna go 86. I really enjoyed this. I'm looking forward to listening to their other stuff.
Yeah, and that puts that in like the low 80s for us. And I feel like that's a great score for this album. It's a good album. You guys should check it out if you haven't heard of this one, and tell us what you think. I mean, I would love to start a conversation with you guys about this album at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to throw in
No.
there? Guys, please check out our new Tumblr page with our new friend Ian, or he's an old friend, but he's a friend of ours who's now joining us, our team, to do web blogging and web written reviews, and he's posting that on our Tumblr page, which is vimtb.tumblr.com. Please friend us on Facebook and Twitter, because we are all about the Facebook and Twitter. We like that social network stuff. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And thanks for watching, everybody. We are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.